Yo, what's good everyone? Coach D here, coming to you with another YouTube video. We're gonna keep on the trend of ranking exercises. Today I'm gonna tell you my favorite and least favorite exercises for building the quads. So we're gonna go over a list of 12 different exercises here. Gonna rank them S through F. S is the best exercise, F is it's horrible, would not recommend for building muscle of the quads. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let Coach D know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Let me know what your favorite quad exercise is, or let me know which ones you absolutely cannot stand. Hoping to read them those and see what y'all have to say. So let's go ahead and go into our criteria here. So again, 12 exercises here. What makes a good exercise for building the quads, right? Specifically for building muscle mass. Well, of course, a lot of similarities from the other videos we talked about. Number one, it has to target the quads very, very well. Of course, the quads, the main thing that they do is extend the knee. They also flex your hip up, so bringing your knees to your chest. But of course, the main thing is like coming out of a squat, right? Being able to straighten your leg. So does it actually do that movement? And does it focus mainly on that muscle group, or are there a lot of other muscles involved? That's gonna be a very, very important point we're gonna focus on. Also, how does it feel in your joints, right? Some exercises may feel a little bit more taxing on the knees and the hips. Others might feel really smooth, and that's what we're gonna focus on is what gives you good longevity so you can train this muscle, train this movement pattern again and again without making your joints feel too angry. Also, what is easy to modify, right? Are certain exercises tougher to adjust, whether it's the load or the position, and kind of what's good for like your level, right? Is this exercise extremely difficult at the jump, or can I modify it really well to whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or someone who has been lifting for a decade and it can still give you benefit? We got to take those things into account. And lastly, does the exercise give you a good stretch at the bottom of the movement, right? As we talked about, if you want to build muscle mass, you want to make sure you can get a really good stretch in the muscle, especially where the muscle is longest. So I always use the example of a bicep curl, right? When your arms are at the bottom, right before you start, can I stretch the muscle as much as possible and have a crap ton of tension on it? Because that's a really good way to help it grow. We're going to be checking that as well. And real quick, just to show you kind of when we're talking about the quads here, I'm going to pull up a little image here that you can see what the quads kind of look like. Quadriceps, meaning four muscles. You mainly see the three main ones, and there's one deep beneath them. But again, it's the large muscle group that is on the front of your thigh that helps you straighten your knee, right? And if you want to get kind of that definition, kind of that deep cut that you see in your quads, or maybe some of that teardrop that you see kind of on the inner part of your thigh, these are some exercises that are going to really help you out, and also some exercises to avoid. Maybe if you're trying to build them, are not going to be the best for you to ultimately get yourself some tree trunks. So let's jump into them. Exercise number one here is going to be a barbell back squat. This one I'm going to give a B, and if I could give it, I'd give it a B+. Now, before everyone gets mad in the comments saying, barbell back squat, best exercise, listen, if you were asking me potentially the best lower body exercise for all around fitness, for strength, for building muscle, for power, just for general being a strong badass, I would say probably the squat is up there as the number one exercise. But purely for building muscle of your thighs, it is a phenomenal exercise, but there are some things that kind of keep it out of that S or A tier. So let me kind of dive into it. Well, what are the good things first? Well, obviously it loads the shit out of the quads, right? You can get into a really deep position where your knee is really flexed, like the bottom of the squat. You can load it up very well. You can also start very light, right? Where you have just 45 pounds or use a light barbell, and you can load this thing very well, get a lot of activation. Some of the issues with it though is that number one, there's definitely a learning curve, right? If you're someone who has never worked out before, or even if you haven't really done many barbell back squats, it takes time to learn and get good at the movement. So of course there's that kind of side of it. And additionally, it uses a lot of other muscle groups. So think about it, you use a lot of your upper body, right? To hold yourself upright, a lot of your spinal erector muscles like your middle back, your lats, your traps. It does also use a lot of your glutes and your hamstrings, which is not a bad thing. But in terms of isolating the quads, you might get tired with your back or maybe your glutes and hamstrings before your quads give out. And so because of that, because a lot of other muscles are working and maybe those get tired first versus your quads, maybe not the most or the best bang for your buck compared to some other exercises. Again, really great exercise still. I'm gonna give this one a B, if I could, a B+. The next one is a Smith machine squat. This one I'm gonna give an A. Now again, the Smith machine gets a lot of hate. It's like, oh, that's not really squatting, man. Yes, it is. And what makes this a little bit better, has all the benefits of a barbell back squat, but you can get a little bit deeper because you can adjust your foot position to where you can get a deeper stretch for your quads. And it's a bit safer because it's on a fixed track, right? The learning curve goes down a bit. And if at any time you get stuck at the bottom of a squat, you can always rack it. You don't need someone to spot you. So it's really, really safe. The squat itself is still safe, but again, you don't have a spotter, you might have to bail or maybe get stuck. Not as safe of an exercise. And so the Smith machine squat is going to be a bit safer, a bit more effective. I'm going to give this one an A. Next is the leg extension machine. This is a phenomenal exercise. If you want to isolate and develop the quads, I'm going to give this one an A. What it does is it's very nice because really the only muscle that's working here is the quads. So your lower back, your hamstring and glutes are not really playing much of a role here. You can just work your quads like crazy. It's very easy to set up. It's very easy to adjust on a selectorized machine. You just move the pin down to whatever weight works for you. And so it works very well for a lot of people. Anecdotally, if you do have some knee issues, specifically with the quad tendon or the patellar tendon, some people this might be a little bit difficult, so that it is something to consider. And of course too, the hardest part of the movement is when your legs are straight, right? So if I'm sitting at the edge of my leg extension machine here and I got my legs straight, this is where the movement is hardest, which is not what I want. I want the movement to be very difficult when my legs or my knees are most bent. So it's not the best mechanical position. You can of course set the seat up, which you'll see me here doing in a sec, where you lean back really far. That does help a little bit with putting more stretch on the quads. But outside of the slight issue where some people have knee pain and the positioning, other than that, it's a phenomenal exercise. Doesn't really tax your body too much. Would definitely have this in your quad building program. Next is lunges. This one, it's okay. I'm gonna give it a C here. Lunges are cool because they do work the quads, right? You straighten the legs, and there's a million different ways you can do a lunge. You can do a stationary, reverse, walking, barbell, dumbbell. You have a lot of options. It's pretty damn safe. And of course, you can progress it and regress as much as possible. The issue becomes there's kind of two main limiting factors. One is that it's actually more so a glute builder, a little bit of hamstrings as well. And so the glutes are going to be the main driver, not the quads. And secondly, if you've done lunges before, I'd say almost more than any exercise anecdotally, it works your cardio. Like the number one thing it works is your heart. So you might be doing a set of barbell lunges. Yeah, I feel my quads working, but my heart rate's just at 170 the entire time. I feel like I'm having a panic attack. And that's the main concern there. Not necessarily that your quads are getting a lot of work. So because of that, I got to knock it down a few notches. So I'm going to give this one a C. Next is going to be step ups. Again, kind of similar to the lunge where it's mainly focusing on the glutes. Yes, I am extending my leg. I can get the box up pretty high to where I get my knee in a pretty bent position. But again, I'm really just more so targeting the glutes here. And unlike the lunge, yes, I can put a barbell on my back. Yes, I can do different variations, but it's a little bit harder to modify the step up, right? I can kind of adjust the height. I can kind of adjust the load, but I don't have as much variations like you do a lunge. The step up is kind of stuck in that pattern. Maybe your grip starts becoming the limiting factor, or maybe, hey, I just feel all my glutes, not as much as my quads. And so does it work the quads? Yes, but not as much as the other ones that we described, like the squat variation. So unfortunately, I got to give this one a D. Deadlifts. Let me preface by saying, I love deadlifts. Great exercise, but these are shit for building your quads, okay? It is true you do bend your knees a little bit and you do strain your legs, but you don't really bend your knees very much. And again, we want to bend our knees as much as possible, get into as deep of a stretch as possible, and you don't do that with the deadlift. The deadlift gets a really good stretch in the glutes, the hamstrings, and works those muscles along with the lower back and kind of your traps and lats a bit, but you're not really working your quads very much. You probably don't even feel it that much in your quads whenever you do a deadlift. And so for overall strength and lower body performance, deadlift, A exercise, phenomenal. But for building the quads, unfortunately, man, I got to give this one an F. Not a very good exercise. Decline leg press. Anecdotally for me, this is probably my favorite leg press variation. Mechanically for my body, it works very well. I can load it very well. I can get a very good deep stretch. You can change your foot position quite a bit to whatever works with your anatomy. And most leg presses, you can go from having basically no weight on it to loading it up as much as you need to challenge yourself as much as possible. So this is a really good way to load up the quads, get a nice deep stretch. And unlike a squat, it doesn't put as much pressure on other muscles of the body, and there's not as much of a learning curve. So it's a lot more of a user-friendly exercise. My only complaint with this one is that some people anecdotally do mention having a little bit of lower back pain on the decline. Again, this is preferential. So outside of that small caveat, this one is an A. This is a phenomenal exercise here. Would definitely recommend some leg press variation if you're trying to build your quads, because this one is awesome. Now, another one is the isolateral leg press. This one I'm going to give a solid B for building your quads. What's really nice is, like I mentioned for the decline leg press, some people complain that it bothers the lower back a little bit more. This one I've noticed, if it bothers your lower back with a decline leg press, This one seems to clean that up because the more upright posture is more comfortable for those individuals. So it kind of cleans that up. The flip side, though, is that because each leg is working independently, some people it's very difficult to perform, especially as it starts getting heavier. There's a lot of skill and one leg just overpowers the other, and they never really get down the form too well. Or if they do, they just feel like, hey, you know, one leg gives out before the other. I feel my quads quite a bit, which is awesome, but unfortunately I kind of reached this limit where I can't keep the movement symmetrical. And so because of those issues that you see there with kind of keeping the feet equal, unfortunately I got to give this one a B. Still a really good exercise if you like this one for your quad work. Bosu ball squats. This one's going to join the deadlift. This one's going to be an F, and I'm going to give this one an F- for building the quads. Again, if you like them and they're fun and you're safe and effective at doing them, sure, you can go ahead and do a Bosu ball squat. But you can't really put that much force into the movement, meaning I can't load it very well. If you're new, it's not very stable, and so there's a safety concern for it. And again, we're trying to make sure we can load it as much as possible, get as deep as possible, and have an easy learning curve. Unfortunately, this exercise doesn't really have any of those. So if you enjoy doing it just as like general fitness, sure, go ahead. If you're trying to build your quads, the Bosu squat's not really going to help. I'd rather you do like a body weight squat or a kettlebell squat of some kind, or even like a goblet squat, like front loaded. That's going to be much more effective than being on this unstable surfboard that's not going to really focus on your quads that much. Next is a front squat. This one I'm going to give a B, specifically the barbell front squat. Again, puts a lot of demand on the quads. You can get really deep into the movement. Awesome, awesome exercise. The only concerns with this one is for people's wrists and for how you position the bar around your neck. Some people just don't have the mobility to get into this front rack position, which you can change with straps or by crossing over. But again, even if you do that, some people complain that the bar is like choking them out like they're in a jiu-jitsu tournament, right? So unfortunately, while it does put a lot of work on the quads, on the joints, especially the wrist and towards the neck area, can be kind of painful. But if you really like front squats and you got good technique and good mobility, 100% can have them as like your main squat pattern for building the quads. Next is the Bulgarian split squat. Now, before I kind of give my rank here, I would say if you have no equipment, this is like a phenomenal exercise that you can do. This is probably one of the tougher body weight based quad exercises. If you have no dumbbells, no kettlebells, no nothing. So if that was the case, this would probably be an A exercise. But given the ability of a gym and all the equipment, I got to knock it down to a C. Yes, it puts a lot of load on the quad, but again, you're quite limited in what you can do. You could technically put a barbell on your back with a Bulgarian split squat. I wouldn't recommend it. That'd be a funny setup to watch. Don't do that at home, please. Most people use dumbbells or kettlebells. And because of that, you're kind of limited in how you can progress and regress it. And if you're new to the movement, well, if you've ever tried them before, there's jokes about Bulgarian split squats because they are a very tough exercise, right? You put an Eastern European country on the end of an exercise, it makes it tougher, right? And so this is a very, very tough exercise. If you're new, it's going to make you very sore. But if you're someone who's advanced, again, this is more of a glute-based exercise, not going to focus as much on the quads as some of the other squat variations that we talked about here. So unfortunately, I got to give this one a C. And last but not least, and arguably this is probably my favorite go-to right now for building the quads, is going to be a belt squat. Belt squats are phenomenal. It has all the benefits of kind of like a Smith machine / a back squat, but your upper body isn't really involved in all because you hold onto some handles. It's around your waist where all the tension is. And so you can just load it up, hold onto the handles, and not really worry about your upper body having to do any work. You can get super deep. You can adjust where you put kind of the hook or where you put the belt to get in the best position for yourself. And you can adjust your feet however you want. So really user friendly. If you have some injuries or issues with your upper body or your lower back, kind of cleans that up. And again, it really targets the quads very, very well. So this is going to be my S tier plus exercise. Phenomenal squat. Going to work your quads super, super well. And that's it, everyone. Again, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Again, leave a comment. Let me know. Did you like my rings? Did you agree with them? What are some of your favorite or what are some of your least favorite quad-based exercises? I'd love to hear what y'all have to say in the comments down below. And as always, be sure to check the socials, daily content, as well as this long form content every other week. And of course, you're interested in doing some coaching with me down here in South Florida or doing some virtual coaching where I can work with you anywhere, be sure to head to theshiftmethod.org or just send me a DM. I'd love to work with you, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. Later.